Hi, this is Morley and this is the M-Wire. In this video, we're going to look at the level of systemic voter fraud that is presently taking place. Thank you to my new subscribers. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so, as that would greatly help out the channel. Please help fight the censorship. Okay, a lot is and is currently happening in terms of the lawsuits with President Trump that he has filed against various states. That's no secret. But before I get into that, I want to talk about the general consensus of the left on all this. And later in the video, I want to present a scenario that very few are talking about, especially on the left. Do stay tuned. So the left's take on all this is one of general dismissal. They are either dismissing all the mounting evidence as a conspiracy theory, or they're just saying that voter fraud happens in every election, so just suck it up. They are essentially following the MSM and whatever they tell them. While it is true that there is fraud in every election, the sheer magnitude of the level of voter fraud here is staggering. People are dismissing the affidavits, even though the people that signed them are under the threat of a maximum 3.5-year prison sentence and a $10,000 fine if they are found out to be lying. Let's set that aside and look at all the voter fraud that occurred using the Dominion voting system. Exclusive, based on reports by auditors, IT specialists, data analysts, and statisticians, the number of illegitimate votes identified in the 4 swing states are enough to overturn the election. In a little over a week, groups of volunteer IT specialists, data analysts, auditors, and more have uncovered enough potential fraud to overturn the 2020 election. Over the past week, the groups of professionals have gathered to ensure the election integrity was present in the 2020 election. These groups of Trump's and America-loving patrons are working to their own time and digging into election data to verify potential evidence of voter fraud. Despite the MSM promoting a group of experts claiming this was the most secure election ever, the real evidence indicates a total different story. In just a week, we have uncovered enough potentially fraudulent activities and votes to overturn the 2020 election. We've reported on numerous incidents of fraudulent activities across the country in this election, from false claims of a water main break in Atlanta to control deficiencies in the electronic voting machines used across the country, the lost flash drive in Milwaukee, to turning off the signature fraud confirmation tools in Nevada. This election was a mess. There are numerous legal questions as well as to how to address the numerous illegal and corrupt activities the Democrats carried out in Michigan to steal the election. Shockingly, Pennsylvania may have been worse. There is enough legal issues identified to date to indicate the most corrupt election in U.S. history. So what is the impact? Today we can say that there is enough information presently available on the potential fraudulent activities that when quantified would overturn the election. The biggest potential identified to date is related to the data coming from the voting machines themselves. After we have identified the number of anomalies where votes appear to be switched from President Trump to Biden, a group of experts dug into the election data and found it was not an innocent mistake. By using election day data, this group found millions of votes removed from President Trump and placed in the Biden column. This data is now being reviewed, but our initial results are consistent with the group's reporting. Millions of votes, people. So all of a sudden now we're talking about millions of votes. This evidence makes the affidavits look like small potatoes at this point, but it does all add up. If there is no fraud, why are the courts allowing recounts in 4 states, soon to be 5? There are currently recounts in Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. In Pennsylvania, election officials specifically denied a Supreme Court order to not count ballots received after 8 p.m. on Election Day. They did anyway. Here is just a snippet from Trump's lawsuit against Pennsylvania. As evidenced by numerous sworn statements, defendants' egregious misconduct has included ignoring legislative mandates concerning mail-in ballots, which amounted to over 2.6 of the approximately 6.75 million votes in Pennsylvania, including the mandate that mail-in ballots be postmarked on or before Election Day, and critically preventing plaintiffs' poll watchers from observing the receipt, review, opening, and tabulation of mail-in ballots. Those mail-in ballots are evaluated on an entirely parallel track to those cast in person. On Election Day, when Trump's campaign poll watchers were present and allowed to observe in various polling locations throughout the Commonwealth, they observed and reported numerous instances of election workers failing to follow the statutory mandates related to two critical requirements, among other issues: a voter's right to spoil their mail-in ballot at their polling place on Election Day, and then to vote in person. The ability for voters to vote provisionally on Election Day when a mail-in ballot has already been received for them, but when they did not cast those mail-in ballots. Additionally, plaintiffs have learned that certain county election boards were mailing unsolicited mail-in ballots to voters, despite the fact they had not applied for a mail-in ballot for the general election, thus resulting in voters who received two ballots. The offending counties also failed to undertake any effort to ensure destruction of the duplicate ballots. Whether you want to admit it or not, there was widespread election irregularities for this election. Here's a scenario that not very many people are talking about at this point, but it could have been President Trump's plan all along. Listen to this. If the Supreme Court should decide that voter fraud was rampant and widespread enough throughout the country, they may very well throw out the election results altogether, which would mean that the vote would go to the House and every state would get exactly one vote, regardless of the size of the state. There are currently 31 Republican states and 19 Democrat states. How do you think that would play out if it came down to a House vote? Well, we're not there yet, so it's a little premature to be talking about that, but it's certainly something to think about. Thank you for coming along to my video. Please help fight the censorship. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. God bless.